I just got a bit less volume overall. I was at a show last night, so my ears are sensitive. Turn it down. That's better. There we go. That's good. Thanks.
I aim to please, Tim. I aim to please. Welcome to episode 1571. I gave myself an extra 100 episodes there. Why not? Who's counting, right? I'm the only one counting. I could do that.
Glad to be here.
Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Learn how to plan, invest, and live smarter. That's a good idea. Live smarter. Season 7. Speaking of living smarter, Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut, is Tim Bovaconti. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for not hitting your head when you came down to the basement here. And well, you said you had a gig last night. Where were you playing last night?
Oh, I wasn't playing. I went to a show. I went to see Nick Lowe at TD Music Hall in part of Massey Hall there.
Very cool. How was that?
It was amazing. I've been a fan since I was 13. And I think this is my favorite Nick Lowe show I ever saw. But partly because the sound is so good in that place. I don't know if you've been there, TD Music Hall.
No, I don't think I have. I'm trying to think if I have. Maybe I have.
It's the smaller room that they just sort of put in. It's brand new. Great production, great sound, sight lines. Yeah, it's very good.
I got to make my way out there. Check that out here. Maybe this is a good place to start. I'm kind of curious about your musician origin story, and then we're going to walk through some of your highlights, and then I have some music to play. We're going to get to know you better. When did you fall in love with music?
Well, when I grew up on Toronto Island, on Ward's Island, and
what's that like?
It's different. My dad still lives over there, and I went to Island Public School. There were only 6 kids in the whole grade 6 in the whole system there. Very small community. We were lucky. We got to go on these school trips once a year. We'd fundraise the year before the trip. And we'd go for a week to Gas Bay Peninsula and then bill it with families in PEI. And, because it was such a small school, you were able to do that. If there was, 80 kids, how are you going to pull that off?
Right.
So we do these awesome trips. And I got into music around that time. My teacher, Barry Palmer, rest in peace, he took us to a concert in Quebec City on that trip that we went on, grade 5, I believe. And it was Robert Charlebois, a French-Canadian rock and roll singer who I knew nothing about. But it was the first time I ever saw a guy hitting real drums. And I was like, wow, This is so cool, right? And it went from there. And my uncle gave me a Yamaha Spanish, like a classical guitar. And I started to learn easy chord Beatle books and things like that. And it just blossomed from there, I guess.
And when do you realize, hey, maybe I could do this professionally?
It's funny, I always think, but when I was 12 years old, I started to learn Jimi Hendrix licks. I had a little tape recorder. It's not we didn't have YouTube like all the kids now, where you can, you got a guy, and here's half the speed. Here's how you play the lick. I had a little tape recorder, and I'd put a mic up to my stereo playing the record, and all along the Watchtower or something by Hendrix, and I'd find note by note what he was playing. That's how it was very time consuming. But more rewarding, I'd like to think that because you had to work for it. Yeah, but you had to work for it. That's for sure. And I once I quote unquote mastered a song, I would call my friend Brian Smith, who lived over on First Street on Ward's Island. Brian, you got to get over here. I learned the solo on Watchtower by Hendrix or something, you know what I mean? And so he always supported me, and that's kind of how I started to learn. I was always self-taught.
So I'm curious, when you are raised on the island, You might be the first person I've talked to who was raised on the island. Like, how often do you take the ferry over to Toronto proper?
Well, when you're a kid, you wouldn't have to, but if you're, if you had a job, like you're a grown-up adult working, you'd have to go every morning,
But you did as a kid. Like, how often? Like, how often would you visit Toronto?
Maybe once or twice a week. Like sometimes less. Well, if it was hockey season, I played house league, so I had to go to the city for that. So I'd get the first boat to get to hockey. St. Mike's or Leaside. I played at both of those places.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to move the mic like a titch closer. I want you to stay where you are. No,
okay.
Just want to capture all this gold here, Tim. You know how it works here. So, and the headphone volumes are good?
Everything's good, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure which one you were. It's like, I'm in the middle of an intro. Where the hell's Tim's and which one is it?
It's okay.
So I turned them all down except mine. See, that's what you do when you're not sure which one is the guest. You turn them all down here. Okay. So I want to shout out Blair Packham.
Yes.
How do you know Blair?
Blair, I remember seeing the Jitters in the heyday at Nathan Phillips Square, and they had hits on the radio, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And I remember, it's funny when you're an impressionable youngster trying to get into the music thing, and I remember I have this image in my mind, and I've probably never even told Blair this, of him standing outside the Black Bull on Queen Street West. I'm like, that's the guy from the Jitters, very esteemed from my perspective.
Well, when you're on a radio, that's a big, especially when you're a kid. Any rock band that's played on the radio is a big deal.
Yeah, and then I guess I'm trying to think where I first met him, but we have a lot of mutual friends. Fergus Hambleton, who I've played with for years.
Okay, he was here just about a couple months ago. He was in this basement.
Yeah, so I can't remember pinpoint like exactly when I met Blair, but just over the years, different songwriting things and yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to still discover this origin story. So when you realized you could be a professional musician, but like when did you realize you could write a decent song?
Well, I'm still thinking about that.
You're gonna let me know.
Yeah.
You'll phone me when you do it.
I think the way I look at music, and that goes for playing as well, is like you never get there. Like it's a constant learning. I hate the word journey right now, but you know what I mean. Like you never reach your target as far as I'm concerned. Like I guess I'm a harsh critic of myself, but I think that you're always constantly trying to do better. Write a better song.
So I'm going to drop names periodically, and then it'll be your job to just tell me everything you can about that name. Okay, this is putting you on the spot here. But the first name, this is a gentleman. I got to tell him he's yet to visit the basement, but we did do an episode of Toronto Mike via Zoom, so he is an FOTM. Love the guy, but he's never been in this basement. So this is a shout out to next time Ron Sexsmith is in the neighborhood. We got to make that happen. But please tell me when you met Ron, your relationship with Ron, professionally, personally, and let's talk some Sexsmith.
Okay. Well, Ron, I met, it was probably in the 80s. I used to play a lot at Say What downtown, and George Mildebrandt, the owner, he would put together these like 3 different songwriters sometimes, like sort of a package night. And he put me, I remember one time he put me on with Ron Sexsmith and Kurt Swinghammer, who incidentally did the artwork for my about to be released album. And I see his Sam the Record Man on the wall there.
Here's a Swinghammer. Thank you to Rob Pruce for the birthday gift.
Yeah, I've always looked up to Kurt too, as an artist and a musician. I always I learned a lot just watching him play as a sideman with people and his own shows as well. And I love his artwork. So he's done my last 3 albums, I think. But back to Ron. So we sort of know each other from, playing the odd bill together at Say What. And then I used to see him in the East End. Once I moved off the island, I lived in the East Side. And
so, how old are you when you leave the island?
I was about 18. I lived on the beach with my mom and my stepfather. Okay. And then when I finally moved out on my own, I was living near Coxwell Avenue, and I remember seeing Ron on the bus one time, and I'm like, "There's that guy." But we didn't talk. We didn't know each other. And then there was a funny thing that happened. I was dating this girl, and it was her birthday. And I knew Ron at this point just to say hi. This is probably around 2000, And I was like, man, what could I do for my girlfriend's birthday? because she loved Ron. She had a poster of him in her room and all this stuff. And then the next day, I ran into Ron at Ted's Wrecking Yard, which is now gone. It was a venue on College Street. And so I just went up to him. I said, "Hey, Ron." And he's like, "How are you doing?" And at this point, I was playing with Kim Stockwood, and she was signed to EMI.
You're stealing all the names I was going to throw at you. No, please, we'll get back to Kim. But yeah.
I'm stealing your thunder. So then I see Ron.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, he just walks in, and I go, "This is perfect. I was just thinking about him yesterday, and I haven't seen him in ages." And so I go, "Hey, man, would you come and play at my girlfriend's birthday party?" And his first question was not like, "Yeah," or whatever, or "I'm busy." He just said, "Will there be cake there?" It was because he had his 2 young children. They were really young at that point. And he just wanted to know that because he obviously had to bring his kids,
right,
because of his situation at the time. He was taking care of his kids, and so I said, "Yes, there will be cake there." And then the second question was, "Do you have like a PlayStation or anything like that for my son?" In other words, like, I'll do it if these prerequisites are covered.
What a sweetheart move by Ron Sexsmith.
Yeah.
Like, that's a sweetheart move. Like, just play your girlfriend's birthday party.
Yeah, and he arrived at the door, and I wanted it to be a surprise, and I was upstairs though, and she answered the door and was shocked to see Ron Sexsmith. She's like, "What the hell?" So long story short, we jammed on my back porch that night. Wow. And a bass player named Maury LaFoy, who I played in a band called the Supers years ago, he was there as well. And we the three of us jammed, and about a month later, he ran into a mutual friend, and she had been at the party, and he said, "Yeah, I want to get in touch with Tim. I want to see if he wants to go on the road." That's how I found out he was looking to augment his band. And so then I just took the initiative and reached out to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to be doing Europe." And so I ended up traveling all over the world with him for about 11 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you played with Ron Sexsmith all like Europe and
Japan, and got to play like Royal Albert Hall. He headlined, which, if I can tell a quick Nick Lowe story,
please,
related to that.
Sure.
When Ron headlined in Royal Albert Hall, I think it was 2013. I flew my now wife Jenny over to the UK, and my mother and my sister and my aunt and cousin, and I remember feeling a bit nervous. We'd been on the road for like 5 or 6 weeks, so there was no reason why I should be nervous about the gig, but it was such a big show, like in London and Royal Albert Hall. There's more pressure, I guess, or I was putting it on myself, and I was kind of pacing around backstage, and it was minutes before we were supposed to go on, and it was myself and the bass player in the band, who was Jason Mercer, and Nick Lowe, because Nick was friends with Ron, and it was just the three of us in the dressing room at this one moment, and I would guess Nick caught my nervous energy. I was walking in circles, and I just heard this voice. I didn't even see him say it. I just heard, "It is a wonderful place to play. Go out there and enjoy it." And I just chilled the F out. I walked out there, I just felt like it was just totally magical. I just sort of embraced the moment, and we had a great time. And I thank Nick Lowe for that.
So why did you stop playing with Ron? Did he replace you? He kick you out? What happened?
No, I had a sub.
You didn't have any more cake? I
had a sub. There was about 5 years where I was touring all over the world with Ron and touring with Burton Cummings. Like, I needed 2 of myself. Like, it got crazy.
Yeah, you had to clone yourself, like Dolly the sheep.
Yeah, I needed that, and I didn't have the wherewithal or the technology to make that happen. So
okay, so we're gonna get to Burton later.
Yeah, it's so the Ron thing. Like, I subbed it out when we found out we were having twins, and I have 9-year-olds, identical twin boys.
Wow.
Brighton and James, and I just thought, well, I can't be going away as much, and Burton at that time wasn't doing long tours, just like 4 days here, 4 days, smaller little sample sizes of road work. So that's how it sort of went down.
You had to make a decision.
Yeah, and then
that's all life is, man. Just a series of decisions.
Yeah, and I'm still playing with Burton, and I do miss the days with Ron sometimes, but it was kind of crazy. I remember one time being in a stopover, like flying from playing in Frankfurt, Germany, and then playing the next day with Burton in Connecticut.
Wow.
It's like you're in liquid form, when you get to the gig, and you're just like, well, it's a good thing I had practiced playing stoned in my youth, because this is like, if I just feel like I'm stoned, I'll get through the gig. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like crazy.
It's good training. Okay, a few points here. One is I also have a son named James, so we have that in common.
Right on.
Okay, I just think, celebrate that. Okay, and then in your humble opinion, Tim, do you believe that Ron Sexsmith is better appreciated in Europe than he is in Canada, his homeland?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So why is that?
I have no idea. Like, he's well known in Canada, but sometimes people go to Europe and like Feist, for instance, they go over there and make it in Paris or somewhere like that. I can't remember her thing, but
yeah, it was Paris.
And then they're embraced back here more, even though they gave it a shot for years in Canada, but they love the artist in Germany, so we better start liking them. There's that kind of thing in Canada sometimes, and I believe that's the case with Ron sometimes. For instance, like, we would play, big theaters in England and all over the place, and a band like Blue Rodeo, they would play the Borderline in London, which is a club. Ron has a bigger profile in England than Blue Rodeo.
See, let's process that. That's a mind blow for a lot of GTA listeners tuning in right now.
But it's true. I saw it.
So I know I had Ron on. I should ask him, like, has he ever considered moving to Europe?
I don't think he has. I've never heard him talk about it.
Well, he's like Peter Mansbridge's neighbor now, or something like that.
Right.
So
yeah.
he's got his thing going on there. Okay. A couple of more things. Can you name the members of the Supers?
Maury LaFoy, Graham Powell, and Jeff. I'm forgetting his name right now because it's the morning.
Well, I'm putting you on the spot here. Okay. You didn't know this was going to be 90 minutes on the Supers. So, okay.
That's right.
Also, I'm going to give you, I know you write songs, so here's something to get you going. You need to write a song about Sexsmith on a bus. Like, it's starting to form in my head, okay? So Sexsmith on a bus is a song you could write.
I can still see him sitting at the back, and he remembered that moment too, because I had a guitar over my shoulder, like a gig bag. And he said, yeah, I remember seeing you. That there's that guy that plays guitar. Like, we had this sort of knowledge of each other.
Can you explain the button that's on your collar here?
The button?
Yeah.
Oh, this is I Still Love the Delphis, which is my good friend Jerry Legier's side project, which I play in quite often. It's a sort of a rotating cast of musicians. And I was out with Jerry last night at the Nick Lowe concert.
Well, let's talk about Jerry then next. So I'm going to go out of order and I'm going to bounce around, except Jerry played live in this basement. I had a great chat with him. Loved it very much. Tell us about your relationship professionally and personally with Jerry this year.
Yeah, I met Jerry when he was 17, and I was hosting with a couple other guys this open stage, but it was just original music. I would play bass or pedal steel usually because there were lots of guitar players, keyboard players. And Jerry was this kid who would show up at this bar at Woodbine and Danforth, and they'd always make him wait to the end. He was too young to even get in, but he became my guy. Like, I'm gonna play drums with Jerry. Like, get out of my way. So we'd be like the White Stripes or something. Jerry playing an electric guitar, right, and me on the drums, and that's how I knew him. And I guess I championed him. I thought, well, this kid's, he was a kid then. And he's really good. He's got great songs.
Yeah, well, Dawnlands is the last album I heard.
Yeah.
I think that's still his most recent album, and it really is fantastic.
Yeah, he's so prolific. And so I guess I championed him at a very early time in his thing. And then he was going to make his first record, and I said, let me produce it. We'll go to the studio. I just want $100. That's what I just wanted to help him, right?
But you would have done it for cake.
I would have done it for cake for sure, as long as he had a PlayStation there, with the NHL or whatever, NHL 2001 or whatever year it was.
Yeah, that's around my time for the NHL EA.
I stopped after that. I had to break the habit.
And the music was always pretty good, right? Like, I'm thinking Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
No one knows.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. All right. I have a note from Blair Packham, though, because I said, hey, Tim's coming over Friday. And he said, His wife Jenny is very tall.
Yes, she's taller than me.
Okay, so what are we talking? I just when you get a note like that, like I picture a 7'2" WNBA superstar. What's going on here?
Well, she's like 6'2", and when I'm standing straight, I guess I'm about 6'1".
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you were with Jerry at the Nick Lowe show, or
last night? Yeah,
last night
we're hanging out. Yeah.
That's okay. Come on, we got to start recording these things. I feel like that's a reality show waiting to happen here.
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
There were a lot of musos there last night. Lots of musicians there. Everywhere I turned, there were people that I knew or recognized. Nick attracts that crowd for sure.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Blue Rodeo, not as popular as Ron Sexsmith in London, England, in the UK at all, right? That's a Sexsmith town. By the way, shout out to Sex Hammer.
Yes, the duo of Kurt Swinghammer and Ron Sexsmith. What a great name too.
Great name, and shout out to Lori Cullen too, who biked
awesome.
over here last summer, and we got to get Lori Cullen back to kick out the jams. Okay.
When we went with Ron, we played on the Conan O'Brien show, and I remember his monologue. He said, and today we have also on the show Ron Sexsmith, and he goes, Sexsmith, that was my nickname in college.
What year was this Conan O'Brien performance?
I think it was 2001. That's when I joined Ron's band, 2001.
You know what? I think I had fallen off. I was such a massive Late Night with Conan O'Brien fan when he launched for like a few years, where I was just like all in on it. I love the irreverent comedy. I just love it. It's so refreshing. I was a big fan, and I was already a big Simpsons fan, so I like the Conan O'Brien comedic vibe or whatever. But I might have fallen off by then. But man, okay. So Michael Boguski.
Blue Rodeo.
That's right. That's where I was going. So speaking of Blue Rodeo, see, thank you. I got to put in these segues. Come on. Speaking of Blue Rodeo, do you know Michael Boguski?
I certainly do.
Okay, talk to me about my former Michael Power classmate.
Okay, he's a fine gentleman and an amazing keyboard player. I remember seeing Blue Rodeo at the, I guess it was the Molson Amphitheater then, and I just remember he just played this solo with his head down over the keyboard, and it was...
Is it Diamond Mine?
I think so, yeah.
So that's where he does his thing.
He gets along,
Mine.
Yeah, and he blew the roof off. Like, everyone freaked out. It was so good. And he's a great guy. His first wife... my wife, like the four of us hung out a fair bit, and I don't see him as much now because we're both doing different things. We're busy, but I consider him a friend and an amazing musician.
So classmate's kind of wrong because he's a bit younger than me, but he was in the school at the same time. But it was his brother who was my classmate, Mark Boguski.
Yes, I've met Mark.
You know Mark? Okay, so we're the same class. It's funny because yesterday I was doing a gig. I gig. I don't sing at my gigs though, so no pressure. I don't play guitar at my gigs either. So I was at a gig at One Yorkville yesterday, and so I couldn't take my son to a soccer practice, which happened to be at this new location of Michael Power. And my wife took him to this thing. This is a long, boring story, except it was open night, so parents were visiting Michael Power, like just a coincidence. So to kill time, my wife and my youngest child were touring around Michael Power. And they found the grad photos. I guess every graduation class gets a picture on the wall somewhere and this is a new location. I'm like, this is boring to everyone but maybe the Boguskis. But they moved locations. So the physical school I attended actually got turned into rubble so condos could be built. So,
of course,
shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. But this new location does have these pictures. And my youngest daughter, who's 8 years old, was very excited to find me on the wall of this school in Etobicoke. So I'm sure we could get him hunting for all the Boguskis too. But a fun moment for me personally was during the pandemic when we couldn't see live music. I don't even know how you survived. You can tell me in a moment. But Michael Boguski came to the backyard because we couldn't even get inside here, like to record. And he had his keyboard with him, and he played Diamond Mine in my backyard. And it's like, oh, I missed this so much, and it was so good. And I just wanted to shout him out.
Oh, yeah, no, he's a great guy.
How did you survive the pandemic?
Well, I have a studio in my backyard. I call it Tim's Garage because it's in the old garage. It's converted. And I had already started building up, I hate the word clientele, but, like people would come and record with me. And sometimes I would play most of the instruments and sometimes I would just record them, engineer or whatever. And so I had a bunch of people that would come by regularly, and I have this large shed, cedar shed that a friend built just before the pandemic, and I was standing in there one day during the pandemic, and I'm realizing like 3 of me could stand in here, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn this into a vocal booth. So I got my friend to drywall it, and I put some soundproofing in there, and we drilled a hole in the side of the shed and a hole through the brick in the garage so I could run a mic cable from building to building. And I had a talkback mic in the garage. And I would just email someone like my friend Don Stevenson. He was in the band Moby Grape.
He's been here.
Yeah,
He played by the Toronto Tree, where we'll take a picture later. I took great video, but yeah,
so Don,
he's great.
Yeah, one time Don, I'm like, so when you get in the backyard, just go down the little slope and go into the shed. And so I just hear this rustling, and then I'd be like, Don, are you there? Hi, Tim. Like, just over the mic, right? And I would record the vocals, and it kept my sanity just to have that like contact with people coming over.
It's funny because Adam Fox was just here.
And I know Adam too.
That night, Adam attended TMLX 16 at GLB Brew Pub. So I want to thank Great Lakes Brewery for hosting us there because they had free food and your first drink on the house. And everyone who came out to the Toronto Mike Listener Experience 16 had a blast. So I just wanted to shout that out. But Adam Fox busks for the TTC. And when he was sharing the story with me about how he busks for the TTC, I remember Don Stevenson does the exact same thing.
Yeah, he does. He has an album called Buskin' in the Subway.
Yes.
And we recorded some of that at my studio.
Oh my God.
And including having Burton Cummings come over and play keyboards and sing backups on a couple songs.
I remember him telling me. Now I know what the common. Now I see. Now all the pieces are starting to fit over here. I got to shout out Gare Joyce real quick because Gare Joyce is the guy who made sure Don Stevenson got into the basement here, and we had that great chat about Moby Grape. Moby Grape, one of the more underappreciated bands from that era.
San Francisco, yes.
Big deal when you get into the history of music. Big deal, but you don't hear about them in the wild very often. Moby Grape.
Yeah, they're sort of a favorite of so many people, like Robert Plant, and you read a book like Chrissy Hines' autobiography, and she's like, I loved Moby Grape. Like they always name drop Moby Grape. So they're sort of a favorite of artists. They didn't beat the world, set the world on fire sales-wise.
You need the big hits, yeah.
Yeah, but they're an awesome band, and Don still sounds great. He's still writing. Yeah. He's all over it,
Absolutely great. Like a living legend you got there.
For sure.
And Don Stevenson. So this basement studio.
It's in my garage.
In your garage, sorry.
In the backyard, yeah.
It's my basement studio. Right. The garage studio. Sounds like you've made some pretty good records. Back there.
My own as well. I did that during the pandemic, the one I'm just releasing.
Okay, so I have songs. We're going to spend the last chunk of time playing a bit of that and talking about that. But some names you dropped earlier. One big name I got to pick up, but can you tell me about Kim Stockwood? Lovely woman.
Yeah, she has a new single that's just coming out, and we recorded a lot of that in my studio. I met Kim, it would be about 96, and she was signed to EMI, and a mutual friend of ours recommended me to play guitar with her. She was looking for somebody to tour and stuff, and so I auditioned and got the gig and ended up playing on her. Well, actually, her sort of big single, Jerk. It's kind of a weird story, but the EMI put out her debut album, Bona Vista, and then it wasn't doing so great, I guess. And in the meantime, she had these other 2 songs, so they pulled the album off the shelves and revamped it with these 2 songs that we recorded that I played on, one of which was Jerk, and that became her biggest hit. And we had a lot of fun. We played for a bunch of years, touring mostly across Canada.
And she's a Newfoundlander.
Yeah.
Okay. Many, many moons ago, I was like embedded into the morning show. This will bring you back. Easy Rock morning show.
Right. Yeah.
I love Easy Rock.
I remember the theme.
Jeez, yeah, I used to play like syndicated John Tesh on that station. Like that was really easy listening stuff.
Was there some air supply in the mix?
All I need is the air. Absolutely, that's as hard as it got over there.
Nice.
But This morning show was 4 people. I remember it was Humble Howard Glassman from Humble and Fred. It was Colleen Rushholm. It was Rick Hodge, and it was Kim Stockwood.
Yeah, I remember when she did that.
So, yeah, I was there for one morning anyways to watch. First of all, too many people for a morning show. Okay, right. That's my first tidbit. But, yeah, Kim was lovely.
Yeah, she's great. She's awesome.
Okay, this is a good time for me to give you some gifts for coming out. And then we'll hit the big name that you dropped, and we'll touch on some more stuff and get to the new music.
Oh, can I give you one more Blue Rodeo story?
Of course.
Because I just remembered the first time I ever played an electric guitar was Greg Keeler's when I was, I think, 11 or something, up at our cottage on Bob Lake near Minden, Ontario.
Wow.
My grandparents were good friends with the Keelers, who were 2 cottages down. And that was Jim Keeler, Greg's stepfather. Well, actually, he was adopted, right? Jim, and I knew them, and then they said, "Oh, our son Greg is in a band," and I was getting excited about music at that time, and then another visit later, they said, "Oh, Greg's coming up," and the next day he showed up, and they all went into town to drink beer at the Rockcliffe Hotel, and Greg left me with his, I think it was a white Telecaster and a little Fender Champ in the cottage, and I just made a racket by myself while they all went out drinking.
Well, just last month I was at Massey Hall when he got inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. Greg Keeler. Amazing. And then Ron McLean inducted him and Jim Cuddy into this Hall of Fame. So Ron McLean tells a story, but I had heard it previously from Jeff Merrick, but I'm going to just throw it here now because I don't think it's been told on this program. But because some people have now heard it, but everybody at Massey Hall acted like they were hearing it for the first time. So I don't think this is widely known. But the 1972 Summit Series.
Yep.
Bobby Orr was hurt.
Yes, he didn't play.
Didn't play, but they were testing him out, I guess, giving him a workout in Toronto. And they needed a goalie, but I guess the Toronto Marlboros had just practiced, and they grabbed one of their goalies to just help them work out Bobby Orr on the ice. And do you know who that goaltender was?
No, I don't, actually.
Greg Keeler.
No way. I didn't know that.
So there you go. He's tied to the 1972 Summit Series forever. So
and Ron Sexsmith was briefly a goalie.
I heard a lot of Canadian musicians are goaltenders.
Yeah, Gord Downey was a goalie. Ron was a goalie. He told me the story that he invited a girl to watch him play hockey, and thinking he would impress her, and he let in 13 goals.
Oh.
Only 13.
Yeah, the coach, I guess they didn't have a backup on that team.
Yeah, he had to weather the storm.
Poor Ron, because, who knows what could have happened if he had a better out. But any other musicians? I remember, I think it was Ron McLean telling me about the extraordinary number of Canadian musicians who are goaltenders. But maybe there's a common trait required to be on stage as a rock star and between the pipes. You have to be a little loony, right?
Keanu Reeves is a goalie too.
Okay.
I was playing house league.
Youngblood, right?
Yeah, I was playing house league at Moss Park years ago, and we were short a goalie, and there was these guys were on the ice right before us with all these really pretty ladies looking through the glass. I'm like, what? There's usually never anyone on before us, I'm like, what's going on? And I went out onto the ice, and there was still this one goalie on the ice. And I said, hey, man, we're short a goalie. Can you stay another hour? And he took his mask off, and it was Keanu Reeves.
That's mind-blowing. Were they were filming something?
No, I figured he said this, what he said. He said, I have to go to work. So I think he was filming something in Toronto, right. But he had paid for the ice time for his buddies.
I mean, of course, famously, he spent many of his formative years in the city, living in Toronto.
That's right.
We can sort of adopt him, I think, as a Canadian if we want. Citizenship be damned. Okay, some gifts, some shout-outs, and then we'll get back to the ongoing story of Tim Bovaconti. So, I know you don't drink because I asked you off the top if you wanted a beer, but you probably have a neighbor or a friend who enjoys fresh craft beer.
I definitely do.
Okay, good. Because the most delicious craft beer you can buy in this province is Great Lakes beer.
And the graphics alone are... I couldn't leave these behind. These are awesome.
Yeah, great graphics. The guy who does, well, they have a couple of people do it, but one of the guys used to work at the Only Cafe.
Is that Fabian?
You got it. You know Fabian.
See, it's a
How do you know Fabian?
It's a small world getting smaller. Fabian, I just did a gig, a couple gigs with him with Gary LaRocca, who's just put out an album that was recorded in my studio. And Fabian played bass on that, so we did a few things. And then we recorded an album last year that never came out yet, for reasons that will not be gone into. Nothing to do with Fabian. The mental health of certain members got in the way of the release of their album. But I've known Fabian from the Only Cafe as well, and we've worked together a bit in the last couple of years.
And the Only Cafe, famously immortalized on Shakespeare My Butt.
That's
by,
right.
Ron Hawkins.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of nights drinking in there.
I'll bet. And you can get Canuck Pale Ale at the, I know you're pausing your drinking right now, but you can, when I was last at the Only with FOTM Hall of Famer Cam Gordon, I got myself a Canuck Pale Ale.
So if I need to start up again, I know where to go.
Well, listen, you know where to go. Come see me. I'll hook you up. But,
all right.
So someone's getting that beer. That Fabian story just reminds me how tiny this world is.
Yeah.
Or maybe really it's the city that's tiny. But sometimes I think Toronto's a really big city because I'll say, oh, if I want to bike to this part of the city, it's going to take me 2 hours or whatever. But then other times I realize, nah, man, it's just a tiny little village.
That's true.
All right. So shout out to Fabian. And Great Lakes is brewed right here in southern Etobicoke, by the way.
Nice.
Palma Pasta is going to host us for TMLX 17 on November 30th at noon. And anyone who can hear my voice right now is invited. So that, Tim, you're invited. If you come out to TMLX 17, we just had 16 at the GLB Brew Pub. TMLX 17, November 30th, Palma's Kitchen in Mississauga. Palma Pasta will feed you, and you'll get a can of GLB, Great Lakes beer as well, and then we'll do a live recording. But in case you can't make it because you got a gig or whatever, I am giving you it's in my freezer, I'm giving you a large meat lasagna from Palma Pasta.
Excellent.
Do you enjoy Italian food?
I do. I very much do. And so do my kids. So I know it's for dinner tonight.
Well, good. No, seriously, they'll thank you later, and there'll be leftovers too. It's a lot. It's very good. Awesome. Ridley Funeral Home wants you to have that measuring tape.
All right. Is it to measure your potential resting place?
I think I'm trying. So now I've been giving that away for a couple years now, and the number one joke when I tell people they got a Ridley Funeral Home measuring tape is, "Can I measure my casket with it?" And it's like, yeah, that's. I'm expecting that joke now, but nice. Measure what you wish, Tim. No judgment here. I would urge you with this new wireless speaker I'm giving you. That's from Moneris. Moneris would love it, and I would love it if you subscribe to Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast that they produce. Al Grego is the host, and he does a great job. And Al went to Winnipeg, Manitoba, to talk to small business owners and collects their inspiring stories in Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open. So you can listen to that. Cool. With your new speaker, and then you can listen to some Ron Sexsmith if you like.
Nice.
The latest episode, I'll just read the description real quickly here. Things get spicy in episode 3 when Al visits Nikhil Dutt, owner of Spice Circle. His family opened the restaurant in 2019 despite having no prior business experience. So let's find out Nikhil's story. That's episode 3 of season 7 of Yes, We Are Open. And last but not least, piece of advice. If you have a drawer, a room, a closet full of old electronics, old tech, old devices, old cables. Tim, you don't throw that in the garbage because the chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and you'll find a place you can go to drop that off to be properly recycled.
Sounds like a plan.
You got your marching orders, Tim. You didn't know this. No such thing as a free lunch, okay?
I'm being told.
You're getting told here. So I know I very much want to talk about Burton Cummings. But we did go by very quickly. What exactly do you do with Fergus Hambleton? I think he's a very talented and a great conversationalist.
Yes, I've known Fergus. Fergus at one time lived on Wards Island. When I was a kid, I was too young to get into the dances in the Wards Island Clubhouse, which sadly burned down last year. Unbelievably. I used to watch Fergus through the window. And then in the 80s, the Algonquin Island, the other part of the island community of, people living there and stuff, it burned down in the 80s, I think 89 maybe. And there was a guy on Wards Island named Rick Simon, he still lives there, who sort of spearheaded this benefit, which was at the old Bamboo Club on Queen Street West when it was there. and he brought different people together, and he knew that I was an island kid and that Fergus had lived there as well, and he brought us together to play on this show. And so we'd never done that, and it just sort of went from there. We've done a lot of gigs together, and for years I played with the Satellites. We had a residency at the old Orbit Room on College Street for like 15 years. Got to have guests like Taj Mahal showed up one night and played with us, sang with us, and Brinsley Ford from the band Oswald from the UK reggae band. So it was like, they called it Reggae Night, and it was just a great party. Amazing. Lots of people would come by. One night Colin James played my guitar, and
wow,
I played the tambourine then. It was just, you never knew who would show up.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Love that guy. I heard he had an accident, or I don't know. Did he?
Yeah, I think he had a car accident or something.
Hope he's okay, because he's a sweetheart. Anytime a guy of that level will visit the basement, they're a sweetheart, right?
He's a great musician, man.
No, I hope he's okay. By the way, it's funny, I didn't check in on the live stream, but I see now we got a definitive listing of the members of the Supers. You ready? I think there was a name you were forgetting the name to. So, Maury Lafoy.
Yes.
Bass, vocals. Jeff McPherson.
That's McPherson. Yeah,
that's where you're going
it's
for.
It's early in the day. I know his name, but I just, you blank out, especially when you're a father of 9-year-old twins.
I can imagine. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I feel like that's difficult enough. But having the 9-year-old twins, that's a double whammy right there. Yeah. Okay. So Graham Powell, singer, and
he plays with Jan Arden now.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jeff, I don't know what he's doing, but he's done a lot of shows, like Broadway shows. He's in the pit band. He does a lot of that kind of stuff. Okay, maybe. And Maury, I think, is doing some production stuff around Toronto.
Oh, fascinating. And some guy named Tim Bovaconti, guitars and vocals.
Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, I also just heard from Blair Packham, who wants to tell you how you guys met. You ready?
Okay.
You were in a band called The Love Cows.
Oh, right. My trio, yeah.
Okay. So who's in The Love Cows?
Okay, that was Shane Carney on drums and Bob McKittrick on bass, who plays in my band these days.
And what's your band now? Is this The Enablers? What's your band now?
It's just my name, essentially. Like, I just sort of go under my own name.
Well, who the hell are The Enablers?
Oh, that's sort of an on-off name, depending on our mood, I suppose.
Okay, depends on your mood.
Yeah, but that Hughes Room is just billed under my name, and I've got Bob McKittrick on bass for that one, actually.
So when are you going to be at Hughes Room?
Sunday, November 17th, from 7 to 9 p.m. And we're going to play most of my record, which is called Again, and I'm going to have vinyl on site, and it'll be released for streaming the very next day. And so vinyl will be for sale as well at the gig. And I've got a great band together. My friend Blake Manning is playing drums, and him and I played with Kim Stockwood years ago. And Bob McKittrick, as mentioned, on bass, and my friend Patrick Alcock on acoustic guitar and vocals. And Robbie Grunwald is playing keyboards. He's got all the Mellotron sounds and the psychedelic stuff that I need.
Amazing. Okay, and shout out to Jane Harbury at the Hughes Room.
Yes.
Okay, the legend herself. Okay, so obviously I want to talk Burton Cummings, but I did get a tip that you had a meeting, you met Brian Wilson. Oh, yeah,
with Ron in 2003. We did this tour with Coldplay. It was 6 weeks, and it was amazing. Like,
So Ron Sexsmith was like opening for Coldplay?
Yeah, it sort of came from...
That's wild.
Yeah, we did a London show, maybe 2001, and I found out later that Chris Martin was in the crowd. Like, he was a fan of Ron.
Wow.
And then around 2002, I believe, we were playing in Australia with Ron in a theater. Actually, no, what happened was we had a gig in Sydney, Australia, and... then we had the next night off, and somebody from Coldplay's team got in touch with Ron and said, "We're playing this theater tomorrow night. Do you want to open?" It was like one of these last minute, because they were such fans of Ron's writing and everything. And so we did this theater gig, and that bloomed into the next year. They asked if we would do it was 2-3 week segments, So the first 3 weeks we were doing half arenas because they were just ascending, and then like there was a month off and we were doing like the full.
Oh, that's when Yellow broke.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember that in real time.
It was their second album though. It was their they had that song.
Rush of Blood to the Head.
Yes, that's the one. And with that single "In My Place."
Right.
So
that has like the Scientist on it and a whole bunch of hits.
That's when they just totally blew up. So the second leg of the tour, I'll never forget. I got the tour book and I'm like, oh my God. Bucket list. We played Madison Square Garden. We played 2 nights at the Hollywood Bowl. We played 2 nights at Red Rocks in Denver. We played the Molson Amphitheater in Toronto. It was nuts. It was such a great experience. And after the first night at the Hollywood Bowl, there was a huge after party right behind the stage. And, you turn your head, there's Gwen Stefani. It's just Hollywood, right? There were people there that I didn't even see, that some other guys in our band, Steven Spielberg, I said hi to him, and all this stuff, right?
Wow.
And then and Ron came up to me at a certain point and said, "Tim, Brian Wilson's here." And I was like, "No way." And we like literally ran to the security entrance and they were holding Brian up because he didn't have a pass. But he's like, Brian, and this young kid didn't know who he was. You can't come in. But they finally realized, they got to let him in. And he was with his wife, Melinda, who sadly passed away earlier this year. And we had a chat. And Melinda said, "Oh, Ron, Brian and I were talking with Paul McCartney, and he said that you're his favorite songwriter." I'm standing there hearing all this stuff. And then Brian kind of wandered off to the dressing room, which is below ground. You have to go into the earth, literally. And so I just kind of went down there. And when I got down there, the door to Coldplay's dressing room had been shut, and I wasn't going to just barge in, even though I knew the guys. And then the door opened, and it was Guy Berryman, the Coldplay bass player. And he said, "Tim, come on in. Brian's here." And I knew he was there, but I was just being polite.
Right.
And I walk in, and everyone's kind of tense because Brian's in one of his sort of, I'm not really here, like, sitting there like stone silent. And there was a bit of tension. And to break the tension, Guy passed me his little Martin acoustic because he goes, "I know you know some Beach Boys songs." So I picked up his guitar, and I put my foot on the couch, and Brian's like sitting right next to me, and I sang "The Warmth of the Sun." It's from 1963. I love the Beach Boys.
Sure.
And I just remember looking at the floor and not looking at Brian because I was so nervous. Like my heart's going boom, boom.
What's that like, playing a song back to like one of your musical heroes?
It was nuts.
That's nuts.
And what made it even crazier was that after a few bars, I heard his voice. He sang with me, like in unison. And it was just it was very emotional for me.
Tim, now you know how I feel when I sing "Last of the Red Hot Fools" to Blair.
Exactly. I hear you. I feel you.
One of my 8-year-old's favorite jams.
It's a great song
because Blair played it live at a TMLX event, and
nice.
She's still, and it's catchy AF, as the kids would say.
Yeah,
That's hooky song. But man, you got to meet Brian Wilson.
Yeah, it was like it was very emotional for me, for sure.
Does Stephen Page know? Did you let him know?
I think we've talked about it because I've played with Stephen a few times, actually, filling in for Craig Northey. Like we did a winery in BC last year. It was so much fun.
The trio.
Yeah. I did the trio with Kevin Fox and Stephen. And another time I did Q with them when Craig couldn't make it. I learned a few songs. And
wow. Brian's got a lot. Stephen, Brian probably, I don't know what Brian's up to these days, but Stephen's got a lot going on. He's got the Trans-Canada Highwayman. He's a busy beaver here. But,
yeah, they're working. They're working, man.
Well, that's what you got to do in this country, right?
That's what you got to do.
No dull moments for you.
I try not to have many.
It sounds like you're busy. Okay. Let's talk, before we hear your new music, Burton Cummings. So just yesterday, my guest on this program was a gentleman named Robert Lawson, who wrote this book, Wheatfield Empire, about the Guess Who.
I've read it.
He'll be glad to hear that. It's funny because
just
before you arrived, I had every 6 months I get the checkup at the dentist, and my dentist is in Cloverdale Mall, and I literally just got back from biking to Cloverdale Mall for my checkup, and that's where you'll find the Sunrise record the Sunrise Records that Robert Lawson manages.
Yes, I see his posts.
Okay, so shout out to Robert Lawson. But mainly the episode yesterday, we did a little fact checking. We like to fact check. Randy Bachman. Have you ever met Randy?
I've played with Randy. When I joined, it was Bachman Cummings.
Oh.
So
let's get the order. So enough about Robert Lawson. People can find that. We do talk a lot about Little Stevie.
Can I say one thing about Robert?
Yeah, he'd love it.
I ran into him in a bookstore on at Spadina and Bloor, and he's like, "Are you Tim?" Like he recognized because he was writing the book at the time. So I ended up giving him some information. I was quoted in his book, and so I'm kind of in the book. And the only reason why I mentioned it is because it's the first time that my name was spelled correctly in a publication.
How
like
do
that.
they butcher it? I find it easy.
Yeah, but there's a book about Moby Grape. And I can't even begin to tell you the spelling. I can't even remember. It was so off.
Well, listen, Robert gets those details correct, but so we'll get to. So I need the origin story of you being Burton Cummings guitarist, but to put a bow in the Robert Lawson thing is so Randy Bachman came on this show. I'm still trying to get Burton on. Okay, maybe you can help me with that in a minute here, but Randy came on and he tells he's a great storyteller.
Yep.
And sometimes the flavor is more important than the facts of the matter when it comes to Randy's. He likes to embellish the odd story, and it becomes a bigger story. And then Robert will fact check these stories. So that's kind of, because, yeah. So I guess that, and I've never met Burton either, but he's more matter of factly than Randy, who likes to lather on some flavor and stuff. So let's hear about you and your relationship with the two of them. Give us the origin story of how you became the guitarist with Burton Cummings.
Okay. It was 2007, and I was still touring with Ron Sexsmith that time. And Nick Sinopoli, the lead singer of a band called the Carpet Frogs, out of Toronto area, he asked if I could do the tour. I didn't audition. I had filled in with them at some of their club gigs, so he liked what I did, and so I didn't audition. I was just asked if I could do the tour, So I said, of course, and they just sent me a live disc, like some CDs, and I woodshed it like crazy, and then I just jumped in. I think we had one rehearsal without Burton and Randy there. And then I was thrown into the fire. The first gig was like a private gig in Edmonton with Burton and Randy. I remember staying there when Burton launched into the intro of These Eyes, and I had to do the little chit on the guitar. And I was like, don't screw it up, man.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was like, don't hit the wrong chord, man. You'll never work in this town again. It was like I put a lot of pressure on myself, but it worked out, and it's been great. I played on Burton's solo album, Above the Ground, 2009. We worked on that in Los Angeles. I was there for 3 weeks. Joined a gym next to the Sportsman's Lodge, and used to see Joe Walsh come in there on the treadmill. It was like crazy stuff like that. And actually, Burton has a new album out called A Few Good Moments, and I played on that as well. And it's just been, touring around with him for years, and we just got off an amazing tour in the U.S., 3.5 weeks, where Burton's reclaiming his turf.
Well, let's talk for a moment about that, because I did discuss this with Robert Lawson, but Burton and Randy, they won.
Yeah, they won that whole thing. And listen, my take on it is, people got to work. Musicians need to work, but there's no way that no original members in a band should.
Well, there's one, right?
Yeah, but he's not even. He's there sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
So to me, it's like.
But that's the legal link.
Yeah. I have no trouble with guys going out and playing songs, but it shouldn't be called the Guess Who. That's my only take on it. I'm not dissing the people that need to work as musicians, because we all do. If you're a player,
And as Robert pointed out yesterday, when they would be playing some festival in the Midwest or something, the promotional material surrounding it would always play like the studio version.
Yeah, which is garbage. You can't do that. That's a lie.
You can hear American Woman with Burton Cummings.
Yeah, and then he's not on the gig.
That's Sass Jordan's husband.
I know. I don't know him. And again, I don't want to, poop on anybody. I think, if they had gone out as, they play
the Guess Who,
or play the music of the Guess Who, or something, like an homage to the Guess Who. Then it wouldn't be a mess,
No, that move that Randy and Burton was main guy behind this, I suppose, where they were prohibiting the covering their published music, I guess, whatever they own the publishing rights to. That's kind of like that move does end up working, because you paralyze the Guess Who if they can't go out and play These Eyes.
They can only play their own self-penned original
They have a couple
songs.
albums, that's right.
Yeah, I know.
And also the other thing that Robert pointed out yesterday, that if you like, let's say Spotify, for example, like it was all mixed up, right? Like you go to let me stream the Guess Who on Spotify, and you'll get the classic Guess Who, but you'll also get those 2 albums.
And I also think that I'm not on Spotify, but I think the image was a picture of the original Guess Who on the Spotify page for that band. I mean, come on.
So congratulations to Randy, and congratulations, of course, to your friend Burton there for winning that. And that sounds like this new band can't use the name The Guess Who. Is that where we're at now? Okay,
exactly.
Interesting. I know Randy's busy with BTO. Although that's another story. So Randy was on the show talking about Fred Turner was going to be a part of this new BTO. But according to sources who have talked to Robert Lawson in Winnipeg, Fred Turner has no intention, no plans at all to play.
No, he's not. He's retired. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, well, back to the flavor of the story. But any chance of Randy and Burton going out as the Guess Who?
We'll see what happens next year. I'm sure there's some discussion, but I haven't heard anything. I think that'd be awesome.
Well, time's ticking. If it's now or never.
Yeah, I know.
Burton's in his 80s. I mean, not Burton. Randy's in his 80s.
Yeah. Burton's going to be 77, I think it is. I mean, they're still able to do it. I mean, if it happens, it'd be great. It'd be great to be a part of it too.
So when was the last time you played with Burton Cummings?
A few days ago.
Jeez.
Yeah, we just did a 3.5 week run in the U.S. that was great. And great response, great crowds. And then we did Caesars Casino in Windsor. We did Caesars in Windsor, and then we did one more gig somewhere in Michigan. I forget where it was.
Amazing. Can you get Burton Cummings on Toronto mic? I would even do it via Zoom.
I could throw it at the wall and see if it sticks.
That's all I ask. I'm big fan, so this will be a very respectful, no regrets. You won't look bad doing it, but I would love to talk to Burton Cummings. Also, my mom was a massive Burton Cummings fan, like the solo material particularly.
Yeah, we do a bunch of the solo hits and
like Stand Tall and all that.
Yeah, we do Stand Tall, yeah, we do that one.
He had a song, you would know better than anybody, but when I was younger in the primary schoolyard, when I'm talking like grade 1, kids would link arms and walk through the schoolyard, and they would say this: hey, get out of my way, I just came from the USA. Like, this was a chant in grade 1. And then this thing was like implanted in my head. Then I changed schools. This long story short, fast forward, the internet gets invented, okay?
Yeah.
And at some point I'm finally, what the hell is this from? And the only source I can find for this is a solo Burton Cummings effort where this is like the chorus. Like, that's the only thing I can find.
That's from the album Above the Ground that I played on.
Okay, but I wonder if he also took that from like the schoolyard chants. Like,
I don't. You'd have to ask him.
Well, that's why I need him on Toronto Mic.
Yeah.
That'll be my first question.
That was called "We Just Came from the USA." That's the song.
Hey. I knew I had the right guy for that. So, so I need to ask him the origin.
I did the solo on that one.
Jeez, Tim, where you been all my life, buddy? Holy smokes, here. We got to get to your music, but I thought we should just explain something for dummies like me, because there's a listener named Dan Jeffrey who many, many years ago was trying to get the Carpet Frogs on, man. The Carpet Frogs are great. And I was like, what are Carpet Frogs? Like, what's going on here? Can you explain, like, the Carpet Frogs and how Burton comes into that? Like, that whole thing, I'm not sure I even have a grasp on it.
There's an interesting night that happened in, I believe it was 1999. Okay. And I was playing with Kim Stockwood. It's a weird thing that happened. It was a corporate gig, and it was Kim Stockwood with her band, which I was part of. We played, followed by Burton Cummings solo. It was for Canadian Airlines. That's what it was. And then to close out the night, they had a band called the Carpet Frogs play. And that's the night, like, isn't that weird that we're all in the same room? And that's the night that Burton heard the Carpet Frogs. He was backstage apparently, and he was like, "Who are these guys?" And that's when they met. And he hadn't been doing any full band shows. He'd been doing solo piano gigs, right? And that's the spark right there where they linked up. And then years later, I'm added on, but we're all there that night. It's pretty weird.
That like we said, it's a small world after all.
Yeah, and there's
you can write a song about that.
Yeah, I will. And there's another night that also by the airport. Because that's where that Canadian Airlines gig.
Yeah, shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, Canadian Airlines. Yes.
Yeah. I was playing with a trio for a corporate gig, and it was just in like this bar right by the airport. I forget what it was called. It was in a hotel though, like, you know, on the ground floor of a hotel. It was like closed to the public, and I'm playing, and I look at the glass door, and Burton Cummings has got his face. Before I ever met him, he's got his face against the glass. He's listening to us, and then seconds later, this other face appears looking above Burton's head, and it's Randy.
Wow.
Bachman. So they were like they were coming from a gig or something, staying in the hotel, and they're like, "Who are these guys in here making a racket?" And I'm like, I was like, "Did you see that, guys? That was Burton and Randy." It was so weird.
That's Canadian rock royalty right there.
Yeah.
Right? That was huge. Okay. Speaking of Canadian rock royalty, you want to hear some new music?
Sure.
Okay, let's listen.
Tomorrow, or was it yesterday? You get your bearings, then they just melt away. Time moves on, but not fast enough. Knuckle down when the days are rough. I get a feeling, but then it drifts on by. Try to grab it, but then it floats too high. Time moves on, but not fast enough. Regard the planets, if only they'd align. Look out your window, you're searching for a sign. Time moves on, but not fast enough. Knuckle down when the days get rough. There is no partner unless you come to dance.
Tim, what are we listening to?
We're listening to the title track of my album again, and there will eventually be a chorus.
Well, I was waiting for it, but then I got impatient here. I can bring her back up. Is this it? Okay.
Yep.
See again that your days are kind and not too lonely. Yeah, I'm hoping that we'll meet up here again.
Give me a little story. It sounds like you've been working on this for a while.
Yeah, it was all done during the pandemic, and the title song that we were just hearing now, again, it was sort of me going, am I ever going to see any of my friends ever again? During COVID, it was mainly about that isolation, you know.
So, but how do you feel when you hear a song about that isolation that many of us experienced during COVID? Like, does it bring you back to a bad time, a frightening time?
No, I think it's like sort of like, wow, we made it through. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of mess in
attitude.
the world, but we made it through. And
there
now
are other messes, but this mess we're making it through.
Yeah, now it's just a psychedelic nugget to listen to, I guess.
2 minutes until that chorus, eh? That's
yeah, I know that it's not.
The kids struggle with that.
I know. It's not commercially minded. That's for sure. It's
well. I guess we're not going to hear this on Kiss 92.5.
No, or
Chum
or
FM?
or I Love Easy Rock.
That billboard for Easy Rock, Gord Downey saw it in Toronto here, and it was Your Music at Work was the billboard for Easy Rock, and he used that when he wrote My Music at Work.
Oh, is that right?
That's your fun Easy Rock fact of the day.
Nice.
Okay. Shout out to John Tesh. And who the hell's the other woman from Entertainment Tonight that was used in the ad? Lisa Gibbons, right? Like, it's like we imported these U.S. Why are we doing that? We got Tim in our own backyard here. Okay, I'm gonna play another one. Okay.
Yep.
You can't stop me. It's my show, man. Get your own show.
As
This one starts with the chorus, see?
So you're learning. That's for TikTok.
As it was, don't count on it, but it'll be alright. It'll be alright.
Am I nuts? Do I hear like a little like surf rock thing going on there?
Possibly. There's many.
Is Don Pyle playing on this?
Actually, it's up. I'm playing everything on the
Can
whole.
I ask?
I did it all myself in isolation.
You're the
as
Dave
it were.
Grohl of this. You're the Billy Corgan of this outfit here. Okay.
How about someone different, like maybe
Prince.
Prince or Todd Rundgren?
Todd Rundgren. Shout out to Mo Berg and the Pursuit of Happiness. Okay.
Yeah, big fan.
We already talked about Trans Canada Highwaymen, so that's
Yeah.
two. Now, what do you like? Do you like Sloan?
Love Sloan. Yeah.
Me too. Okay, let's. And why am I blanking? Who's the fourth guy in Trans Canada Highwaymen? The guy from out west. Why am I blanking on it? Jeez, Mike. I'll
Craig
come out.
Northey.
Craig Northey. Yeah.
Come
Jeez.
on.
I know. I've only seen him a couple times. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Now, and he's been on Toronto Mike too, so that's embarrassing. Digging this vibe very much.
Okay, now I can interject right here. This moment in the song, the lyric is actually was inspired by Andrew Scott from Sloan, the drummer. Because during when we couldn't get together, because we play a hockey game every Tuesday morning, and Andrew's there, and I'm there usually when I'm not touring. And we were just emailed about something, and right when the pandemic set in, right, for real. And
March 2020.
Yeah, and he said, "Let's all be brave and get through a crazy time." And that's the lyric. I sort of paraphrase that.
See how this small world we live in? I just mentioned Sloan because I mentioned Mo Berg because you mentioned Todd Rundgren, and here we are.
Yeah.
Is Dave Badini a part of these hockey games?
Dave was the coach of the Gas Station Islanders, a team that I played on in the Exclaim Cup years ago. So I know Dave a little bit.
I'm trying to think of the guys who come by and tell me about these hockey games. Cuddy says he was Mr. Elbows in the corners.
Yeah, I only played against Jim once. That was a pickup game at Bill Bolton years ago, and I just remember his stick was a little high.
These are the fun facts we come for. Tim, quick sad note here, not to bum us out. I'm gonna play more of your music on the other side, but I did want to mention that yesterday I received word that an FOTM had passed away. So a previous guest of Toronto Mike had died at the age of 49.
Who's that?
His name is Scott Carefoot, and if people would like to hear my conversation with Scott, it's episode 938. So go into the feed. If you subscribe, you can find the feed. Scott Carefoot, episode 938. And I'll just read the description at the time. Scott Carefoot, and this was 3 years ago we recorded this, and we talked about, he used to write for this, it's called Raptors blog. He was a pretty damn good sports media journalist in this market, and he would write for the Raptors blog. He also had stops at the Toronto Sun, The Score. He worked for Bell Media. He worked for the Hockey News. He worked for Rogers Radio. So I just wanted to take a moment to give my sincere condolences to all who knew and loved Scott. 49 is way too young, man. And I just got this sad news yesterday. So sorry to hear about Scott Carefoot. Let's spin another Tim Jam here.
I once knew a place where dreams
those voices yours?
Yeah, it's all me.
Nice. You write a nice pop song, my friend.
Thank you very much.
You know, the song's called More, but you know, in Can Rock circles, that title belongs to 13 Engines.
Oh, damn. Did I forget that?
Come on.
They were a loud band. I remember seeing them.
More sounds a little different than your More, so I think we'll. I don't think you can't even copyright a title of a song, right?
No, you can't.
So get out of here, 13 Engines. I got Lauren Honickman on line 2. He says we're good here. We're good here. So, if someone's listening and they want to support you and acquire this new album, what's the album called?
It's called Again.
Again, right? The self-titled song we played off the top. Mike, take better notes. Okay. How would you like somebody to acquire Again?
Well, they can come to my release show at Hughes Room on Sunday, November 17th, 7 to 9 p.m. I'll have vinyl for sale, and it'll be available for streaming the next day, as mentioned. Right. Yeah. And you can.
I'm paying attention now, too.
You can find me through Instagram. I don't do the Facebook much anymore. But
what's your Instagram handle?
Tim Bovaconti.
How convenient for me, because I'm going to, the way this works is when we're done, I got to get to the freezer to get the lasagna.
Oh, yes.
We go to the Toronto Tree, so named by Dave Thomas. We take a selfie together. We say goodbye. This thing is in the feed approximately 90 seconds later. And, yeah, so this thing's going to go live. I can't even remember. Why am I telling you this? What the hell are we talking about, Tim?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm telling the listenership how it works, how the sausage gets made, but I was going somewhere, but now I've completely lost I'm lost in the music, as they say. So you play all the parts, you do the singing, you wrote this thing.
Yeah, played the drums, played the bass, played the keyboards.
Hughes Room, coming up 17th of November.
Yep.
Cool. Did you ever meet Chantal Kreviazek?
Maybe.
I'm only asking.
And why do you ask?
I'm asking because I just went. I like at the end of this, which is a moment. I shout out the next episode, and I will do so. It just so happens the next episode is a Halloween special, but then I saw the episode after the next, so 2 episodes from now is a visit to the basement by Chantal Kreviazek, and I think it's cool that she's at a level where she'll still visit some guy's basement in South Etobicoke, like because she kind of maybe because she was on the Armageddon soundtrack, and I feel like maybe she doesn't do that because maybe she's too big for her britches there, but she's not. Yeah. She's still one of us.
Right on. No, I can't say I know her.
Okay, let's get some inside info. Because Blair Packham's like, do you know who I am? I'm not going to some guy's basement in South Etobicoke, but I talked him into it. But one more song, then we'll wrap, Tim. This has been awesome. Sexsmith, okay? This is nice.
Thank you. That's the Bover Choir there in the background. Only then can it happen. An even playing field, the chance to grow. Try to think outside the box this time.
Yeah, digging it very much. Now I noticed you kind of blew it. That second track I played is called As It Was, but the other 3 songs I played are like short one word, like again.
Yeah.
More. And this song is called Grow.
Grow. Yeah, it's not intentional. It's just something that happened.
But when
I
you saw
guess.
the trend developing, did you ever consider, let's go back and rename these longer titles?
Not
No,
really,
it's
no.
too shticky for you.
Yeah.
All right, amazing. So other than Hugh's Room, you're just you keep on rocking with Burton Cummings. And,
Yeah, we've got a lot of touring coming up well into next year, including a cruise with Alice Cooper and Colin Blunstone from the Zombies
So you're going to be on a boat
with Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper. 18. I loved the greatest hits of Alice Cooper. I loved it so much.
Oh yeah, no question. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Elected.
Yeah, it's in February.
Muscle, that Muscle of Love. You know what that was, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tim, that's amazing. And he's a hell of a golfer.
Yeah, I don't golf though, and I play hockey. But a lot of my friends that play hockey, they say, "Tim, why don't you golf? You play hockey." I don't see any relation. I'm sorry.
It's funny because yesterday I mentioned I had this gig at One Yorkville, and one of the guys I was talking to is a guy named Danny King is his name, and he's like the 5th ranked professional golfer in this country.
Oh yeah.
Which is like I had no idea because I don't really know what's going on with golf, But that's a fun fact for the golf heads out there hanging with Danny.
Very important and pertinent.
Yeah, well, because Alice Cooper golfs, man.
That's right.
Dude, that's awesome. On your way here, were you thinking, I hope I have a chance to share this anecdote or this story because now's the time?
Oh yeah, there was one other thing well, there's a few things, but I did get to play with Rodriguez at the old mod. What was it called? The Mod Squad.
Yeah, the one on
the Mod
Queens,
Club.
Was that on Queens Key?
No, the Mod Club. It was on
the Mod
College.
Club.
Yeah,
Yes, right,
I was blanking out. The Mod Squad. No, that was kind of crazy.
Sisto, is that his name? Sixto? Was that his name?
Sixto. Yeah.
He passed away, right?
Yeah, he passed away last year. He was playing solo at the old Mod Club, and Fergus Hambleton and his wife at the time, Victoria, was doing PR for him, for Rodriguez. And she's like, I can't get you into the show. She knew I was a big fan. I had both of his albums on vinyl, and it was right when the documentary was coming out. And so his stock had risen greatly. So he could have played Massey Hall, but they had already booked this a smaller show. Wow. And he was playing by himself. And she said, I can't get you on the guest list, but why don't you meet us for lunch? So we went to Cafe Diplomatico on College Street near the venue.
Nick Clinton there, yeah.
Yeah, and got talking, and they told him that I played with Burton, and he was from Detroit, of course. And so he's like, I love the Guess Who. And then he said, why don't you bring one of your axes to soundcheck? I'm thinking, really? And his daughter was there and her husband, who are in the film. They go, yeah. So I went home. I had 2 hours. I put on both of the records. I'm like, I play by ear anyways. I could just play any of these songs because I knew them.
Right.
And so I showed up at soundcheck and we jammed for like half an hour, and he just goes, just stay up for the whole show, man. Like that. It was like,
that's amazing.
It was crazy. Yeah. And I saw people on the street like an hour before the show time. Are you going to Rodriguez? And I'm like, yep, I'll be there. But I didn't tell them I was playing with them. So then they see me up there with them. It was fun.
I often do that at the end. I'll be like, I'm going to play this guy out, but I don't want him to leave a story on the, the cutting room floor. And then, I got nothing or whatever. But that's a great story.
It was fun. And then it cut to 2017. I'll just finish up by saying that I didn't hear from them. They wanted me to do a couple more shows in the States, but there was no time to get a work visa. And I couldn't jeopardize the working with Burton going down there. Then you're screwed. You're on a
blacklisted or whatever.
Exactly. So I had to say no, which was hard to do. But 2017, they reached out and they had a gig booked at Massey Hall, and he asked if I wanted to come in and guest on a couple songs. And then that turned to the next day, another email saying, would you like to open for Rodriguez at Massey Hall? So I did my own stuff. No one knew my stuff, but it was like I brought a 4-piece band.
That's unbelievable.
And it was so great. Like, it was such a great experience.
Well, I'm sorry that we lost Rodriguez, and I'm sorry for your loss there, but what a moment for you to...
Yeah, it was pretty magical for sure.
Well, this was fucking magical, man. I enjoyed this chat, Tim.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it too. And maybe I'll start drinking beer again. These look delicious.
I was going to say, I'm going to drink your beer. That was... You're leaving that beer with me, man. Fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery. And I got to thank Tim, not Tim, you're Tim. I got to thank you, but I got to thank Blair Packham too, who kind of brought us together here.
Thank you, Blair.
Just a weird coincidence that I did kind of a Randy Bachman fact. He was telling a story about how the Guess Who were asked to play Woodstock, but were busy recording American Woman or something, and then Robert Lawson contacted Burton and Burton says that no, we were never asked to play Woodstock. So that's what we're dealing with here, Tim. So
Okay.
somebody's got to,
I'll just stay out of that fray.
Stay out of that. You got too much to lose. And that, speaking of the only, we talked about Shakespeare My Butt. The song's on Shakespeare My Butt. Shout out to Lowest of the Low.
Yes.
And shout out to Fabian from Great Lakes Brewery.
Hello, Fabian.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,571st show. Not 1671, okay? Robert Lawson just jumped out of the bushes and said, Mike, it's 1571. Always fact-checking me. You can go to torontomike.com and follow me all over at Toronto Mike. Tim, Instagram is the place to go to follow Tim.
At Tim Bovaconti. TimBovaconti. Bovaconti.
Like it sounds. It sounds like a guy who would enjoy Palma pasta lasagna. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Much love to all who made this possible. That is Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Raymond James Canada, Moneris, and Ridley Funeral Home. The next episode is the Toronto Mike Halloween special, when the official historian of the Toronto Mike podcast, Jeremy Hopkin, visits. Oh, shout out to Dale Cadeau on the live stream, who says shout out to Lawson. Dale, you're a good man. Hope the weather's nice in BC. Hope you're not flooding out like in Coquitlam there. So Jeremy Hopkin is going to be here on Monday to share the 10 top Toronto ghost stories, the haunted Toronto stories. So that's going to be amazing. And then the episode after that is Chantal Kraviazek live in the basement. That's a bit of a mind blow. See you all then.
The class struggle explodes, and I play this guitar just the best that I can. Well, maybe I'm not, and maybe I am. Who gives a damn, because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. Your smile is fine, and it's just like mine.